You know that specific feeling when you look at a mannequin in a department store, and for a split second, your brain registers it as a person? It's a tiny electrical misfire in your mind, a moment of confusion before reality snaps back into place. You realize it's plastic, it's fake, and you move on. But imagine if that feeling didn't go away. Imagine if the mannequin looked back at you, blinked, and knew your name. That is the only way I can describe the 3 months I spent working for the Sterling family. I was 24 at the time, drowning in grad school debt and living off instant noodles. When I saw the job listing on the university board, it looked like a lifeline. Private tutor needed for gifted adolescent. Sciences and humanities. Remote location. NDA required. $150 an hour. I didn't even finish reading before I hit apply. That kind of money doesn't just pay the bills. It changes your life. The interview process was the first red flag, though I chose to ignore it. I didn't meet the family at a coffee shop or an office. I was summoned to the house, a brutalist concrete compound tucked deep into the hills, miles away from the nearest neighbor. It looked less like a home and more like a fortress or a modern art museum, designed by someone who hated people. Mr. Sterling, the father, met me at the door. He was a man of sharp angles, expensive tailoring, and zero warmth. He didn't offer a handshake. He just handed me a non-disclosure agreement that was 10 pages thick. He explained the situation while I signed my life away. His daughter, Ilara, had a severe, rare autoimmune condition. She was allergic to the world, essentially. She couldn't leave the house. She couldn't have visitors. I would be her only contact with the outside world besides him and a housekeeper I never actually saw. I met Ilara in the library, a room so sterile it looked like an operating theater with bookshelves. She was sitting at a glass desk, hands folded perfectly in her lap. She was 16, with platinum hair so straight it looked like fiber optic cables, and skin so pale it was almost translucent. She was beautiful, but in the way a marble statue is beautiful. Cold, still, unwavering. When I said hello, she didn't blink. She just stared at my mouth, then my eyes, calculating. "Hello, Sarah," she said. Her voice was melodic, but completely flat. No inflection, no curiosity, just a statement of fact. The first month was deceptively easy. Ilara was a genius. I'm not using that word lightly. We breezed through calculus, advanced physics, and literature. She absorbed information like a machine. I would explain a concept once, and she would have it memorized perfectly. But there were oddities. She never used contractions. She never fidgeted. If I didn't tell her to turn the page, she would stare at the bottom of a book for hours. The first time I felt true fear was on a Tuesday in my 5th week. I was opening a fresh pack of printer paper and sliced my finger on the edge of the wrapper. A single drop of bright red blood welled up. Ilara froze mid-sentence. She didn't look at the cut with concern or disgust. She looked at it with fascination. She stood up something she never did without permission and leaned in, her face inches from my hand. Her eyes widened, pupils dilating. "Viscosity," she whispered. "Iron content. Oxidation rate." "It's just a paper cut, Ilara," I said, pulling my hand back, feeling a sudden chill. "Does it hurt?" she asked. "A little, yes." "Show me the pain," she demanded. "Not tell me about it. Show me." I laughed it off nervously and went to find a bandage, but the air in the room felt heavy when I returned. Things escalated from there. I started noticing she was mimicking me. It started small. I have this nervous tic where I tuck my hair behind my left ear when I'm reading. By week 7, Ilara was doing it. The exact same speed, the exact same angle. She didn't have hair falling in her face. She just went through the motion because I did. Then it was my speech patterns. She stopped speaking like a textbook and started using my slang, my cadence. One afternoon, I walked in and she was sitting in my chair, wearing a sweater that was identical to the one I had worn the day before. She looked up at me and smiled. It was my smile. It wasn't just similar. It was a perfect mirror image. "I am Sarah today," she stated. "No, Ilara, you're yourself," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, though my heart was hammering against my ribs. "Ilara is incomplete," she said, tilting her head. "Sarah is functional. Sarah understands the social algorithm. I should have quit then. I know that now. But Mr. Sterling was paying me in cash, and I had rent too. I convinced myself she was just a lonely, socially awkward kid playing a game. The breaking point was last Thursday. Mr. Sterling was away on business in Tokyo. The house was empty, silent as a tomb. Ilara was taking a 3-hour exam I had prepared. I sat there watching her for a while, but the silence was suffocating. I needed water. I told her I'd be right back. I walked down the hallway to the kitchen, but curiosity is a dangerous thing. Mr. Sterling had one rule: never enter the East Wing. He said it was his private workspace. But the door, usually locked with a keypad, was slightly ajar. Just a crack. I looked back toward the library. Ilara was focused on her paper. I pushed the East Wing door open and slipped inside. The temperature dropped 20 degrees. The hallway was dark, lined with heavy steel doors. It smelled like a hospital antiseptic and ozone. At the end of the hall, a soft blue light pulsed from a room. I walked toward it, my footsteps silent on the linoleum floor. I pushed the final door open. It wasn't a bedroom. It was a workshop, but not for woodworking or cars. There were schematics on the walls, human anatomy charts, but with engineering notes overlaid on the muscle groups. Notes about tensile strength and synthetic dermis. And along the back wall, there were glass cases. Large vertical tanks. I walked closer, my breath hitching in my throat. Inside the first tank was a girl. She looked exactly like Ilara, but younger, maybe 10 years old. She was floating in a clear, viscous liquid. Her eyes were closed, her chest still. There were wires running from her scalp into the ceiling. I moved to the next tank. Another girl. This one was older, identical to the Ilara sitting in the library right now. But something was wrong. Her face was caved in on the left side, as if she had been struck with a blunt object. Her eyes were open and milky white. The label on the glass read, Subject 4, Failure, Emotional Instability, Decommissioned. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. She wasn't his daughter. She wasn't even human. Or if she was built, grown, or cloned. This wasn't a home. It was a laboratory. And the Ilara I had been teaching? She was just the latest version. Subject 5, you should not be here. I spun around so fast, I almost lost my balance. Ilara was standing in the doorway, but she wasn't looking at me with the blank expression I was used to. She was looking at me with nothing. A void. In her hand, she held a heavy silver letter opener she must have taken from the desk. Mr. Sterling said curiosity is a flaw, she said, stepping into the room. He said flaws must be corrected. Ilara, I stammered, backing up until my spine hit the cold glass of the tank behind me. I'm leaving. I won't tell anyone. I swear. You cannot leave, she said. Her head tilted, and for a second, her voice glitched. It dropped an octave into a deep, distorted digital buzz before snapping back to my own voice. We have not finished the transfer. Transfer? I choked out. I need your memories, she said, raising the blade. I have your mannerisms. I have your speech. I have your logic. Now I need your history. I need your trauma. To be complete, she lunged. It wasn't a clumsy human lunge. It was calculated, geometric perfection. I barely dodged, throwing myself to the side. The letter opener sparked against the metal frame of the tank. I didn't try to reason with her. You can't reason with a program. I grabbed a heavy metal tray of surgical instruments from a nearby table and swung it with all my might. It hit her square in the face. She didn't flinch. She didn't scream. The impact knocked her back a step, and I saw the skin on her cheek tear. But there was no blood, just a gray, fibrous mesh underneath. She reached up, touched the tear, and looked at her finger. Pain, she said, processing the data. Interesting. That pause saved my life. I sprinted past her, shoving her into the doorframe. She hit the metal with a sound that was too heavy, like a sack of wet sand. I ran. I ran through the dark hallway, through the living room, and out the front door. I fumbled with my keys, dropping them in the gravel, screaming internally. I finally got the car door open, just as she appeared on the porch. She didn't chase me. She just stood there, watching me, tucking her hair behind her ear. My gesture. I sped down that mountain road, taking corners on two wheels, half blind with tears and terror. I didn't stop until I was 3 towns over. I never went back. I never asked for my last paycheck. I moved apartments 2 days later, broke my lease, and changed my number. I told no one. Who would believe me? But sometimes, when I'm walking in a crowded city street, I see someone with platinum hair, standing perfectly still in the chaos. And I wonder if Subject 5 is out there. I wonder if she finished her repairs. And I wonder if she's wearing my smile. People think Hollywood is all glamour and red carpets. But if you actually live here, you know the underbelly. It's a city of desperate people, pretending to be someone else. I've made my living off that desperation for 10 years as a dialect coach. I teach actors how to sound like they're from Brooklyn, how to lose a lisp, or how to scream for a horror movie without shredding their vocal cords. I got a call late one Tuesday night from a guy named Simon. He found my number through a referral I couldn't quite trace. He offered triple my usual hourly rate for an emergency session. He said he had a callback the next morning for a lead role in a gritty crime thriller, and he needed to nail a specific scene. Triple pay is triple pay. I drove to his apartment in West Hollywood around 9 p.m. It was a nice building, the kind with a doorman and a fountain, but when I got to Simon's unit, the vibe shifted. The apartment was spacious, but it was a disaster. There were papers scattered everywhere, scripts, newspapers, takeout menus. It smelled like stale coffee, sweat, and something copper-like that I couldn't place. Simon was intense. He was a big guy, broad-shouldered, with eyes that seemed to vibrate with manic energy. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. He was wearing a t-shirt stained with what looked like ketchup or sauce. "Thanks for coming," he said, pacing the living room floor. "Okay, here's the setup. The character is a father. His family is being held hostage. He's on the phone with the kidnapper. He needs to sound desperate, broken, but he's trying to negotiate. He's trying to stay rational while his world is ending." "Okay," I said, setting up my recording equipment on a cleared patch of his dining table. "Let's try a bass line. Read the lines for me." He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and began. "Please, I'll give you whatever you want. Just don't hurt them. The money is in the account." I swear, it was bad. Wooden. Stiff. He sounded like he was ordering a pizza. not begging for his family's life. "Okay, Simon," I corrected him, trying to be professional. "You're too controlled. You need to pitch your voice up. Shallow breaths. You're hyperventilating. The adrenaline is constricting your throat. Try again." We did it for an hour. He was getting frustrated. He started sweating profusely, his face turning a dark, angry red. "It's not right," he yelled, slamming his fist on the table so hard my recorder jumped. "It doesn't sound real. I can hear the acting." "It's about finding the emotional truth, Simon," I said gently, stepping back a bit. "Use your imagination. What's the worst thing that could happen to you?" "I need the truth," he muttered, ignoring me. He looked at me then, a strange, predatory gleam in his eye. "I need you to do it. Show me." "You pretend to be the victim." I hesitated. "I'm a dialect coach, Simon, not an actor. I teach technique." "Please," he stepped closer, invading my personal space. I could smell the sourness of his breath. "Just so I can hear the cadence, the rhythm of the panic." I sighed. I wanted to get paid and get out of there. "Fine." I closed my eyes. I imagined my own sister in danger. I tapped into that primal fear. I let my voice crack. "Please, I'm begging you. I'll do anything. Just let them go. The code is 8442. Just take it, please." I opened my eyes. Simon was staring at me, transfixed. He wasn't looking at my performance with admiration. He was looking at my mouth, memorizing the shape of the words. He was mouthing along with me. "Again," he whispered. "Say the numbers again, but faster, like you're sobbing." "The numbers?" I asked, confused. "It's a fake script, Simon. The numbers don't matter. Let's focus on the emotion. They matter to the character." He snapped, his voice rising to a shout. "Do it again." We did it again, and again. 8442. Over and over. He made me scream it. He made me whisper it. He made me say it while crying. By the end of the second hour, my throat was raw, and I was genuinely scared. This wasn't method acting. This was obsession. "I need water," I rasped. "I can't do anymore." "Kitchen." He gestured vaguely toward the back of the apartment, without looking at me. He was muttering the numbers to himself, trying to match my pitch. I walked into the kitchen. It was a disaster zone, worse than the living room. Dirty dishes piled high, takeout boxes rotting. On the granite counter, amidst the mess, there was a laptop open. The screen was dark, but the green light of the webcam was on. Beside it lay a high-end digital voice recorder, connected by a USB cable. I don't know why, maybe just nosiness, maybe a gut feeling telling me something was wrong, but I hit the spacebar on the laptop to wake it up. An audio file was open in an editing program. I hit play. Static filled the speakers. Then a voice. It was a man's voice. But it wasn't Simon's. It was terrified, gurgling, wet. "Please, I don't know. I don't know the code." Then Simon's voice, calm and cold, cutting through the recording. "Think, Mark, you have one more chance. The bank account requires a voice authorization." Then a sound. A wet, sickening crunch. And the man screaming in agony. Then silence. My blood turned to ice. My knees buckled, and I had to grab the counter to stay upright. This wasn't a movie script. I looked at a notepad next to the laptop. Written in frantic scribbles were different number combinations. 8442 was circled 3 times in red ink. He wasn't trying to learn how to act. He was trying to mimic the voice of a man he had already killed. He needed the voice to bypass a biometric security system, a phone banking voice ID that required a specific phrase. He couldn't get the dead man to say the code clearly enough before he died, So he was trying to learn to say it himself, using me to fine-tune the pitch and the panic. I heard a floorboard creak behind me. I turned around slowly. Simon was standing in the kitchen doorway. He was holding a heavy cast-iron skillet he had grabbed from the stove. His face wasn't stressed anymore. It was completely blank. Dead eyes. "You have good range," he said softly, "but you're a little pitchy on the 4. Mark had a deeper register. I threw the glass of water I was holding in his face. It was a pathetic move, but the shock gave me a split second. I bolted for the back door leading to the balcony. I heard the skillet smash into the granite counter where my head had been a second before. The sound was like a gunshot. I fumbled with the lock, my hands shaking so bad I could barely function. I heard him roaring behind me, a primal, angry sound that shook the walls. The lock clicked. I threw the door open and scrambled over the balcony railing. I was on the 2nd floor. I didn't think. I just dropped. I hit the bushes below hard. I felt my ankle pop, a bolt of white-hot pain shooting up my leg. I scrambled up, limping, screaming for help, running toward the streetlights. I didn't look back to see if he jumped after me. I flagged down a passing car. The driver called 911. The police raided the apartment 20 minutes later. They found Mark's body in the bathtub. Simon had been keeping him there for 3 days. It was his business partner. Simon had gambled away their company funds and needed access to Mark's private savings to pay off loan sharks. I gave my statement. I identified Simon in a lineup. He stared at me through the glass with that same intense, studying look. But here is the part that keeps me up at night. The part that makes me want to quit my job and never speak again. During the investigation, the police checked the bank records. About 10 minutes after I escaped, right before the cops kicked down his door, the account was accessed. The funds were transferred. Simon had used the recording of me screaming those numbers. The bank's computer couldn't tell the difference. He didn't just learn the lines. He stole my voice to finish a robbery. And somewhere on a server, my voice is still there, screaming 8442, forever locked in that moment of terror. You assume you see a lock on a door, that it's there to keep people out. You never stop to think that maybe, just maybe, it's there to keep something in. That was the mistake I made with the Miller family. I was hired to tutor their son, Toby. The Millers were a wealthy couple living in a sprawling, old Victorian house that felt too big for 3 people. But the atmosphere was wrong from the start. They were nervous people, jump at their own shadows type of people. Mrs. Miller was a waif of a woman who always looked like she had been crying. Mr. Miller was a large man who smelled perpetually of whiskey, even at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Toby has behavioral issues, Mr. Miller told me on the first day, refusing to meet my eyes. He requires a very structured environment. He is not to leave his designated area. That was the understatement of the century. Toby lived in the basement. It wasn't a dungeon. It was a finished basement with carpets, a TV, a nice bed. But the door at the top of the stairs was heavy oak, reinforced with a steel bar. And it was padlocked from the outside. I was the only one who went down there. The parents would slide trays of food through a slot in the bottom of the door, like he was a dangerous animal. They wouldn't speak to him. They wouldn't look at him. "Don't let him manipulate you," Mrs. Miller whispered to me on my second day, clutching my arm with a grip that left bruises. "He's a liar, a pathologically charming liar. Don't believe a word he says." I went down into the basement with my guard up, but what I found was confusing. Toby was 12. He was small, frail even, with messy brown hair and big, sad, doe-like eyes. He looked like the most normal, lonely kid in the world. "Hi," he said, sitting on the floor with a math book. "Are you the new keeper?" "I'm the tutor," I said, trying to be cheerful, though the heavy lock on the door behind me felt oppressive. Over the next month, I fell for it. Hook, line, and sinker. Toby was sweet. He was smart. He loved history and drew incredible pictures of superheroes. We talked for hours. He told me his parents locked him down there because he embarrassed them, because he had ADHD and broke an expensive vase once. He cried, genuine tears rolling down his cheeks, telling me how much he missed the sun, how he missed his friends, how he just wanted to feel the wind on his face. I started to hate the Millers. I saw them as monsters. How could they treat a child like this? I heard them arguing upstairs, voices raised, glass breaking. I convinced myself they were abusive drunks who were hiding their son away to cover up their own neglect. I was Toby's only lifeline. I was his savior. One rainy afternoon in November, the house was quiet. Mr. and Mrs. Miller had been fighting earlier, but now there was only silence. I was packing up my books when Toby looked at me. His face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed. "Please," he whispered. "I just want to sit on the back porch, just for 5 minutes. I want to smell the rain. They're asleep. They won't know. Please." My heart broke. I looked at this small, broken boy, and I made a decision. A stupid, reckless decision based on pity and arrogance. "Okay," I said. 5 minutes. But you have to be quiet." I went up the stairs. I checked the hallway. Silence. I undid the padlock. I lifted the heavy steel bar. I opened the door. Toby walked up the stairs slowly, blinking in the hallway light. He took a deep breath of the house air, like a drowning man surfacing. He smiled at me. "Thank you." Quietly, I whispered, putting a finger to my lips. We walked to the back door in the kitchen. I opened it, and the smell of wet earth and rain washed over us. Toby stood there, closing his eyes, soaking it in. It was a beautiful moment. I felt righteous. I felt like I had done a good thing. Then Toby turned around. He wasn't looking at the rain anymore. He was looking at the kitchen knife block on the granite counter. The change was instantaneous. The sweetness vanished. The sadness evaporated. It wasn't a gradual shift. It was like a mask falling off. His posture changed. He stood straighter, his jaw set. In place of the sad, lonely boy was a look of pure predatory hunger. "Where are they?" he asked. His voice was different, deeper, cold, devoid of any childish innocence. "Toby?" I stepped back, a sudden wave of nausea hitting me. He walked toward the kitchen counter. He didn't run. He strolled. He pulled the largest chef's knife from the block. The metal rasped against the wood. He tested the edge with his thumb, drawing a thin line of blood. He didn't even wince. He smiled. "Mommy." "Daddy?" he called out. "Guess who's out?" I heard a scream from the upstairs bedroom. It was Mrs. Miller. It wasn't a scream of surprise. It was a scream of absolute, resigned terror. The scream of someone who knew their nightmare had finally come true. "No!" I yelled, lunging for him. He moved faster than any kid should be able to move. He slashed the air, missing my face by an inch. I felt the wind of the blade. "Sit down, Teach," he grinned, his eyes wide and vacant. "Class is dismissed." He bounded up the stairs, laughing. A high, giggling laugh that echoed through the house. It was the sound of madness. I froze. I should have run. I should have called 911, but I was paralyzed by the realization of what I had done. I heard the bedroom door smash open. I heard Mr. Miller shouting, The sound of a heavy struggle, a thud, and then silence. Then heavy footsteps coming back to the stairs. I backed up against the fridge, trembling. Mr. Miller appeared at the top of the landing. He was bleeding heavily from a gash in his shoulder. He looked pale, shocking, and old. In his good hand, he held a revolver. He looked at me. His eyes were dead. There was no anger, just a profound, crushing defeat. "You let him out," he said. It wasn't a question. I didn't know, I stammered, tears streaming down my face. He said you abused him. He killed his brother 3 years ago, Mr. Miller said, his voice devoid of emotion. He drowned him in the bathtub. Then he tried to burn the house down with us inside. We couldn't bring ourselves to put him in a state institution. We thought we could contain him. We thought we could cure him. He looked back toward the bedroom, where the giggling had started again. A wet, chopping sound drifted down the stairs. "Get out," Mr. Miller said to me, raising the gun, but not at me. He pointed it toward the ceiling, toward the bedroom. "Run." I ran. I didn't look back. I sprinted out the back door, into the rain, through the mud, and down the driveway. I heard 2 gunshots as I reached the road. Bang. Pause. Bang. I don't know who survived. I didn't stick around to find out. I got in my car and drove until the gaslight came on. I moved to a different state the next week. I don't teach anymore. I work in a warehouse now, where I don't have to talk to anyone. But sometimes, when I see a child smile a little too sweetly, or I see a parent looking a little too tired and nervous, I check the locks on my doors, and I wonder if the monsters are the ones locking the doors, or the ones waiting behind them. And that's all for tonight. Remember, the most terrifying monsters are the ones that look just like us, the ones who might even live right next door. If these stories serve as a good reminder to trust your instincts, then show your support and like and subscribe. Hitting that bell means you'll get a warning before the next nightmare begins. Sleep well, if you can.